This is the story of the little red house with no windows and no doors and a star inside. Once there was a little boy who loved to play. He played all day long with his toys and games. One day he became bored, so he went to his mother, who was full of wonderful ideas, to ask her, "What should I do?" Well, Mother thought for a moment, and she said, "I have an idea. I know of a little red house with no doors and no windows and a star inside. You could go look for it." Well, the little boy thought for a minute, and he thought, that sounds like an adventure. But he said, "Mother, I'm not sure where I should look. How will I find a little red house with no doors and no windows and a star inside?" His mother said, "I tell you what, if you go down the lane, down to the bottom of the hill and over the next, you'll find it. And I tell you what else, if you go find that little house and you come back and you tell me about all your adventures on your journey, I will make you a pie." Now the little boy loved pie, so he decided to go ahead and go on his way. So he went down the lane a little bit, just as his mother had said, and he came to a little girl who was skipping rope. He asked the little girl, "Do you know where I could find a little red house with no doors and no windows and a star inside?" Well, the little girl stopped skipping rope, and she shrugged and said, "I don't know, but I tell you who might know. My dad. He's a farmer, and he's down at the bottom by the barn feeding the cows. Why don't you go ask him?" So the little boy thanked the little girl, and down the hill he went, and sure enough he came to a big red barn, and right outside the barn was a farmer. And the farmer was outside feeding his cows, just like the little girl had said. "Excuse me, farmer," said the little boy. "Can you tell me where I can find a little red house with no doors and no windows and a star inside?" Now the farmer thought for a moment, and he scratched his chin. He said, Now I have lived here quite a bit of my life, and I can't say that I recall any house such as that. But I have an idea. There's Granny, who lives right down at the bottom, down right before you get to the big hill. She sits on her porch, and she knits red mittens all day. Now if you go ask her, she's quite a little bit older than I am. She just might know." Well, the little boy thanked the farmer, and he waved goodbye, and on his way he went, all the way down to the bottom of the hill, just as the farmer had told him. Now he was just right. Granny was sitting on that porch, rocking in her rocking chair. Her skin was wrinkled like a walnut, and she smiled bright as sunshine. The little boy walked up to the porch a little bit, and he said, "Excuse me, Granny." And Granny looked up and smiled sweetly. "Yes, son. The farmer told me to come and ask you. You might know. Could you tell me how to find a little red house with no doors and no windows and a star inside?" Well, Granny rocked back and forth. She knitted her mittens. She thought, "No, honey, I sure don't know a house such as that, but it sure would be fun to find one. Now, I have an idea. Why don't you go ask the wind? The wind is much older than me, and it goes everywhere and it sees everything. I bet the wind would know." The little boy thought this might be a good idea, so he thanked Granny, he waved goodbye, and on down he went. He went a little ways looking for the wind, and he started to think, maybe Mother made a mistake about the little house with no doors and no windows and a star inside. Just then, the wind blew at the little boy's neck. "Wind, wind, excuse me," cried the little boy. "Can you tell me how to find a little red house with no doors and no windows and a star inside?" Well, the wind replied, which to the little boy sounded like, "Follow me." So the little boy did. He followed the wind. He followed the wind all the way down to the bottom of that hill and up over the top of the next one. And when he got over there, there was a meadow, green as can be. And in the middle of that meadow was an apple tree. And the wind blew at the branches of the apple tree until a rosy red apple fell to the ground. Well, the little boy walked over and he picked up the apple and he looked at it and he thought, well, it's red and there are no doors and no windows and worms like to live inside sometimes, so it could be a house, but I don't know anything about a star in an apple, but I'll go try it anyway. So he grabbed onto the apple with both hands and he ran all the way home to his mother. And he ran inside and he walked up to his mother and he said, "Mother, I found a little red apple. I did just as you said. I went down the lane and I ran into a little girl who was skipping rope. And then after that I went and asked the farmer, and the farmer led me to Granny, and the Granny led me to the wind, and the wind led me over the hill, and there was an apple tree. And from that apple tree this apple fell, and I picked it up and looked at it and I started thinking, well, there are no doors and no windows, and sometimes a worm likes to live inside, and it's red, but Mother, I don't know anything about a star inside." So he held it up to his mother, and she looked at it, and she took it from him, and she walked over to the counter, and over at the counter, she very carefully took a knife, and she cut the apple in half so that there was a top part and a bottom part, and as she did, she held it up and showed him, and inside, sure enough, the brown seeds made stars. I see it, cried the little boy. I see the star inside. So it is a little red house. Oh, Mother, you know, the little girl I asked skipping rope, she couldn't help me to find the little red house, and then I went on and the farmer couldn't help me, but he led me on to Granny, and she couldn't find it either. She didn't know about it, but she told me to find the wind, and only the wind could help me find the little red house with no doors and no windows and a star inside. And they held it up and looked at it together, and the little boy said, "I found it." And his mother said, "Now I will make you an apple pie." And that's the story of the little red house with no doors and no windows and a star inside.